Alright, so staying true to our promise of going straight to the QR code implementation, here we are. Visit github.com. Once you're on github.com, you will put slash when I can't pronounce the name, so but it's WERNECKBH slash Laravel QR code. Basically this name slash Laravel QR code. github.com slash this slash Laravel QR code. You'll come to this page. Then we can install. So to install it, we'll use Composer. You just copy this Composer require, go to your command prompt, and then paste. Right click, paste, then you run. You need internet to run this step. So there are many different QR code libraries for Laravel, but this one is the easiest I've found, and it works best. So that's pretty much it. That's basically it. In Laravel, after doing this, which we just ran this command, this next command we're going to run providers and aliases. But the issue is that we're supposed to go set this up inside app.php, but Laravel 5.5 intelligently discovers these any of your classes. Anything from 5.5, 5.6, we don't need to do this because it will be intelligently discovered. Now there are different kinds of QR codes you can generate. The first one is Wi-Fi settings. You have vCard, you have MeCard, you have URL. Let's say you want to encode a URL into a QR code. This one is text. I think we'll be using text. There's SMS, there's phone number, there's email message, there's calendar event. You understand? But we'll be using text. And the example here given here is text. So the way it just works is once you call QR code, you type the text. It will encrypt this text into a PNG QR code image. Now we're going to have to click on the documentation to see the full documentation, but basically it's just okay the way it is. It's a straightforward. That's why I like it. It's very straightforward. So we click on text, and then we can see what's written about text. So it's just that simple, basically. Alright, so the way we'll implement it is, let's test. I'll go to the folder, minimize this, inside resources, inside views, I'm looking for QR code, look at it, and this is the create. When I click on it, it opens, but I observe that it's importing another file called fields. So I go to fields, and in fields I see that, yeah, the word I'm looking for is in the first item, this. So this is basically a form asking for user ID, and this is where the value is supposed to be. So we're going to put the value in the session user. This is how you get the value in session for Laravel. So this basically says any currently logged in user, that's the user ID we're going to use. But we want to hide the form entirely, so I'm going to delete this and delete this and make this hidden. So this is hidden, and that's it. We're good. We can afford to remove the QR code part. Where is it? I have to search QR code path. So we don't need to have this here. I'm going to comment it out. This is how you comment things out in Laravel. It's that simple. That's how you comment it out in Laravel Blade. So I've commented it out. We don't need it. Currency. So amount. So we can put the currency in quotes to say amount in dollars. Oops, trying to grab property of a non-object. I made a mistake. Okay. Probably because we're not logged in. It's complaining about this, most likely. So go to Ctrl F website on this page, look at it. So this is where you add placeholder. So I'll just put a comma, placeholder. In case you don't know what placeholder is that tiny little text that disappears when a user wants to start typing. It shows in the text box. Placeholder could be HTTPS. Explanatory. So which means at the bottom here we're looking for status. So status says 1. I think we have to actually write something there. We can say active. Look at it, 1 here. We can say active. So it shows active, okay? Or cool, or activate, whatever you want to call yours. We don't need this cancel button. There's no need for any cancel. So we're gonna look for cancel at the bottom. So at the bottom you have a cancel. I'll delete that line so that what we just have here is this. So there we are. Right inside the QR code controller. Remember where it is. It's in app HTTP controllers, then QR code controller. This is the file we are in, and we're inside the store function. Now remember that hey, this is wrong in English language. It should be save QR code. So remember what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to do is in as much as we're trying to save the content of the form that is coming in, we want to create a QR code, save the QR code inside our folder. The QR code is basically an image, so we save the image inside our folder, but then we save the path to the image in our database. Alright, makes sense? So in order to save the path to the image in our database, we must have saved the content of the the content of the form. So let's say the form gets saved first. After it has saved, I'm trying not to waste your time by manually typing out code. So here I'm going to paste the code I've already written. Now what does this code do? Update database. Okay. So what does this code do? I just pasted this. First of all, we define the path where the QR code will be saved. Alright. So the QR code will be saved inside QR codes. Check it out. If we look at our folder structure, you will see that there are several folders in Laravel, but this public folder is where it will be saved. So this QR code is a folder, and this is the name of the QR code. So it will be saved here. And what we're going to do is we have to create this folder because it doesn't exist. So we have to create it inside here. So I'll right click here and say new folder and then call it QR codes. So whatever QR code we create will be saved inside here. Another thing we can do is to maybe track which QR codes each user have saved and save it inside their own folder. So let's create we can have something like the folder for this user, but I think this is basically okay. Now one thing about this QR code package is that you must make sure that this folder exists. Whatever folder you're pointing at must exist. If it doesn't exist, the QR code will not be generated and there will be no errors. You will not know why it's not working. So the reason it's not working is usually because you've not created the folder. But in this case, we've created the folder, and the name of the QR code file will be the ID of just the created QR code, then .png. And that's it. So the ID is unique because no two QR codes will have the same ID. So even if 1 million people are creating QR codes, each of them will have a unique number attached to .png file. Now what the next file does is we don't need this. So what the next line does is of course the QR code text example I showed you. So we're going to this is the message we want to encode in our QR code. You understand? So far we don't have the message yet. I will type it in. So let me just type message here. We'll gradually craft out the beautiful message we'll use here. And then the size, this is the physical size of the image. So we are setting it to 4. The margin, we're setting it to 2. And then the out file, this is very important because you're basically saying it's asking you which place in your public directory you want to save the QR code. We have already created the variable here. We said QR codes will be inside a folder called QR codes. And then it's asking you the file type. This must be PNG. PNG is what usually works. If you use any other file type, it may not work seamlessly with your application. Alright, so now all these have been done. The QR code is generated, and we need to save this path in our database. Alright, so one way is to make sure that this QR code is generated before we save the path. Let's say if we have QR code or new QR code, equal to, and then we can say if it run well, then save the path. This success, we don't need success. What it's going to be is input. We're trying to create the path, then save it in the database. So we can now have this line is what saves the database. So perfect. So what happens is somebody fills a form, and the content of the form is received, and all the content is saved in inputs. This is an array, and then we'll specify the file path, we generate the QR code, we check if the QR code is generated. If it is, then we create the path, we save the path, and then we save everything in the database. In this input is what we're saving in the database. It's an array that contains all the contents of the form, and we just added a new item to it, which is the file path, and then everything is saved. So which means if this QR code process fails, then we will not save anything in the database. Alright, so one thing we can do is else with flash failure. So here we're going to flash success. If this is saved, then we can flash success, but if it failed, we can flash error. I think, is it error or errors? Then we can say QR code failed to save successfully. Alright, this is supposed to be singular. Alright, before we redirect, so we're gonna test this, but the last thing we need to do is to import QR code. Since we have already installed it in our app, we'll have to go up and say use QR code. I need to remember this setting. Okay, QR code. Then we also need to use flash. Flash is already there. We import auth. So that's it basically. And in the next video, we'll test our code, try and create a new QR code request, and then we'll check the folder to see whether something was created in the folder. And then in the public folder, we'll see whether a file, as of now, it's empty. We'll see whether the QR code file is created there. Then we'll go to our website and display the QR code so that people can scan it. We're going to go to the controller. We go to the controller, app HTTP controller. Then in the controller, we're going to check out the QR code. No, not really. We're going to check out, the QR code. Then we check out the method, the controller action that creates that. The action is store. Now this action, even though it's named create, it doesn't take care of the creation. It just helps to open the page. Look at, it's pointing at the folder and the blade file. It just opens the page. But once you click submit, this is the function that handles it. It receives the contents of your form, then it submits it to the database and creates it. That's it. So, but where we have issues is where it tries to redirect. Look at it, it's taking us to the index page. Instead of, look at the page it's taking us to. If we go to resources, go to QR code, it's taking us to this index page that has the list of all items. No, we want it to take us to the show, the blade. Alright, so we're gonna do show. Alright, so that's it, show. But then show always demands that you also send in a value, this parameter, the contents of what you just saved in the database. So we're going to add it to, put a comma, put this, put QR code. That's the name of the variable on the page, and the value or what it will contain is this. So this is how it should work perfectly. Let's check if there's any other field that has that issue. Alright, all the other fields look good. We'll come straight to this function. Just before we create the database, we might need to generate QR code, or after, depending. We might need to just generate a QR code. We can do so that's what we're going to handle in the next video. Generate QR code, save data to the database. So we generate QR code, but we have to save it in a file again. Save QR code image in our folder on this site. Alright, so we need to generate QR code, save it first, then get the path and save the path to where we saved it in the database. So it's a very simple method. I'll see you in that video. That happens in Laravel. It happens when you create a folder with the same name as your route. So if you go to routes and click on web.php, we have these QR codes as a route, a resource, a resource, a resource, a resource. So now, if you go to resources folder, you see QR codes is exactly the same name. But the reason why that problem is happening is that inside our public folder, we have another folder that has exactly the same name. That's why the problem is. So we have to rename this folder. I'll do QR codes. I think we should call it generated QR codes. Generated underscore QR codes, which means we have to go back to our QR code controller code. This is a QR code controller. Then we have to scroll down to store. So here we're going to give it the same name, generated QR codes. Alright, so that will be our code. So we're trying to retrieve the ID of this QR code even before we save. This is where we're saving the data, but we're trying to retrieve the ID. So we have to rearrange our code a little. We'll copy this code, paste it here, such that we save the contents of the form first, so that we can retrieve the ID, right? Then we create the QR code and save it in a file. And then if it is saved, we need to update that table. All right, so we have to do QR code. This is how you update in Laravel. QR code, and then you do where ID is equal to QR code ID. That's the place we are updating. So we update, and then what we're updating is just the QR code path. So the QR code path is what we're updating. You can now say is equal to, we can choose either of this. I think we should just choose this, input QR code path. There is an error somewhere, that's why. Oh yeah, this shouldn't cover here, it should be this way. So what I'll do is I'll break them down so that you can see it in just one screen. So this is what we have. I'll break this down again, and then I'll break this down. So we're basically saying update database. Alright, we're basically saying, hey look, first of all, create the record, create the QR code, and if it was successfully created, then update the database with the QR code. Find the record you just created and update it by updating the field, QR code field, with what we now have in QR code. That's here. We'll go to our public folder, public, inside generated QR codes. If we click on it, we'll now see that there is a QR code titled 2. We'll click on it, we'll see the QR code. You see, beautiful. So it's titled what? 2. Obviously have our code here did not work. So we're going to have to find out why it didn't work. So obviously I can solve this problem behind you, but I want to show you how I solve problems like this. First of all, we have to make sure that this if statement actually executes, because after creating the QR code, we want to make sure that this one actually works. So we can do dd, let's just say what we have here. At the same time, we're making sure that there's something contained in this file code, so we do dd. If our code works up to this point, then obviously the problem is with this. Alright, according to our code, this if statement doesn't run at all. This if statement doesn't run. I think one thing we can do is, since we're not trying to write the best code, we can just remove the if statement. That will be one quick solution. Not the best, but it's quick. You can take your time out to write the better code. So there's some redundant stuff, like here we're supposed not to attempt to save. So what we can do is delete this short. Make sure that this is outside if statements. This is outside. Alright, so what happens in our code now is that the form contents are created. We create the QR code, save the image, then we need to update the QR code record in the database. So we update that too. Now we've updated that. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to, if that update was successful, we want to flash a success message. But the issue now is we can do this. We need to be able to track by doing this. We'll say this variable equal to the item that creates, the updates the record. Now we have that. There's a little issue problem we're having in our code. Two different models are named QR code. That is, the model for this file is named QR code. Then the QR code library that we imported, the package we imported, also is named QR code. Look at it. It's named QR code. The only difference is in spelling. Look at this one is all capitals, but our model is just one capital with all small. So they look alike too much. We have to go and change it. And then before we can use our model, we have to import it. So to import our model, we'll come up here. We have imported the QR code library here. So we'll do use app models QR code. Now that's not all. It's going to throw an error. The error it's throwing is that by default, Laravel uses the last name here as what you can use to refer to it. Let me show you. It says cannot use app models QR code as QR code because the name is already in use. This already answers QR code, so we have to put as. We create a variable name for it, so I'll call it QR code model. So this is just a minor bug. So it doesn't happen in all models. It just happens because we're using QR code with QR code again. So now the reason I did app models QR code is look at it. This is app folder. This is models folder. Are you seeing it? And then inside it we have a model file called QR code. That's what I just imported. You understand? So but I renamed the class that is being imported there so that it doesn't clash. So I can now copy this and get down to where we wanted to use it here and replace it so that we don't mix things up. Makes perfect sense now. So we can now go and create a new QR code and see what QR code. Oh, sorry. If we check the, you see, there are now 6 images on our platform. 6. So if you don't want the QR code to be saved on your server, if you just want to generate QR code and output it just like that, then you have to remove this line. See, this line is what does the saving. So one problem you can already find is that the general size of our platform is already increasing. People are dumping images. For each QR code request they generate, it creates a new image and saves it here. So our file over time will grow into gigabytes. So you can have it like that if you have enough server to contain it. But another thing you can do is to make sure that you don't save. Depending on how you're building your application, if you remove this line, it will generate the QR code. it will pass it out to the screen, but there is no saving. It will not be saved. Also, you can clear this out and make sure that anytime somebody wants to view the page, you generate a fresh one for them. You don't save it, you just generate a fresh one. So what we're going to do quickly before we round up this video, resources folder, inside views, inside QR codes folder. So what we're looking for is a file named show.blade. So show.blade is too short, but if we look here, we'll see that it's importing another file. Alright, it's importing another file. So if we go, that file is called, it's inside QR codes folder, and it's called showfields.blade. So it says showfields.blade. Cool. So now we have all the fields. This one displays the ID. Look at QR code ID. This one displays the user ID. This one displays the website. So duplicate it. I've duplicated it. Then we can just use it to display the QR code. Remove this. Now this is how Laravel displays something. So what we want to display is the QR code path. Or let us not do it, since there's already a QR code path down here. QR code path. Where do we have it? Look at it. We want to make a reference to it as an image. So here, I'm going to create an image. I'll do img src. Then we'll close. This is how you create an image in Laravel. But before then, in Laravel, if you want to make reference to the public folder, you use asset. Once you type asset, Laravel knows that you're making reference to the public folder. So we're basically telling it asset, go to public folder. Inside public folder, you're going to see a file named this. Can't display the word message. Alright, and that's what we're going to do in the next video, just to show you that that's the information that is contained there, so that further down the video we can now encrypt a number of things and put into this QR code. So thank you very much.